My name is Joe Peroni, and this is the Rise Above Project. And today we're going to answer the question, how can cheerleading improve your relationship? And also, we're going to answer the question, why is cheerleading so hard when it comes to our partners, our family, and our friends, but yet it seems so easy when it comes to our favorite sports star, sports team, or favorite musician? In order to answer these questions, we're going to have to define cheerleading, which is an enthusiastic, positive response to good news or somebody's accomplishment. So the goal here is we actually have two of them. So number one is to be able to have a relationship where you could share your good news and accomplishments with your partner. So a safe place to be able to share your good news and accomplishments. And the other one is to be able to give enthusiastic, positive, authentic, supportive responses to your partner. Now, if you can do these two things, the benefits are incredible. So we have benefits such as you're going to score higher in intimacy, score higher in life satisfaction. You're more likely going to feel like you're actually in a relationship, that you're in a partnership, that you have each other's backs. If you're in a marriage, much less likely to get divorced. If you're in a long-term relationship, much less likely to have a breakup. So yes, it's that important. Now you might be saying the obvious, that this advice, this information is so incredibly simplistic, like why even bother to say it? Well, there's a reason for it. It's because yes, at first glance, the information is obvious. However, practicing it seems to be incredibly difficult, and we're going to go over some of those reasons. Some of those reasons, they actually make sense, and some of them, in some way, don't make sense. So let's see what we can do with this information. So let's take the first part. What if you're dealing with somebody, whether you were going through childhood like this, or maybe you're in a relationship now with somebody who has these qualities that I'm going to mention, or maybe you're a type of person that you yourself has these qualities. For example, what if you are dealing with somebody, or maybe you're not somebody that's incredibly happy today? And I don't mean that you're so depressed and angry at the world, but maybe just somebody who you would prefer more in your life. It's not going where you want it to, or you have a lot of regrets in life. Maybe something like that. Maybe you're a little bit selfish, self-centered. Maybe you're dealing with somebody who's narcissistic, and I don't mean it needs to be malignant. I just mean somebody that's been wounded to a degree or is having struggles in their life to a degree to where they have trouble seeing outside themselves, and so everything is about them. Maybe somebody's jealous, envious, maybe a little judgmental, maybe from their childhood and they're very anxiously attached, maybe they're insecure, and maybe they just have a degree of childhood traumas to where they have not been properly addressed yet. Maybe they're dealing with feelings and emotions that are difficult to manage. So what if you're dealing with any of that type of symptomology? Is it easy to be able to share good news and accomplishments with a person who might be like that? I think it would be quite difficult. I could tell you as an example, to give you some anecdotal evidence or a story here, is that for me, for example, growing up, I wanted to go to college, and so I ended up graduating college. It wasn't like I received an enthusiastic, positive response from my father. Now, my father was a good man. He loved in the best way he could, and he did the best job he could, and he was always there for his kids. However, my father did have some personality flaws, like we all do, and one of his was that he was not a person who was educated, and he had low self-esteem based on some of the things that, for whatever reason he thought. And so the first time I graduated college, he never even went because it didn't register to him as being a big deal to me in any way. Like, it didn't mean anything to him. And when I did graduate, and then eventually I got a job and I started to make some money and I bought my house, my father always felt a little bit, again, not very happy about himself for the money that he made. So when I started to do well and I had my house, he would have more of the thought of, well, it must be nice. Or being that I was a trainer for a lot of years, it would be like, well, what is it like to be able to just count for people and then make a bunch of money? So he would be very sarcastic. And that's okay, because in one way, like, he's trying to be humorous. But sarcasm really is a combination of humor and also anger, or also humor and somebody really trying to dig at you, to bring you down a notch, to try to hurt you. And again, why would somebody do that? That's your father. Why would somebody do that who's your spouse, or your partner, or your family member, or your friend? Why do people do these things? For all the reasons I mentioned, right? Like, they might be just judgmental, envious, jealous, and just have character flaws within themselves. And you can read this, and it becomes very difficult to be able to share your good news with people who might not have a lot of good news going on in their life. That's why it's very important to be able to have a partner in your life who is very receptive to your good news and your accomplishments. Now, it's very interesting and gets very, very confusing, and sometimes it can affect people throughout their whole life. Because, for example, let's say you don't do well. Let's say, we talk about for better or for worse. Let's say you're doing worse. Let's say you're doing really poorly. You fall down, you make a mistake, things happen. It's interesting because some people will be there for you. And of course, the way we read that is these people love me. They care about me. They're supporting me when I'm down. And I hope that that's true. And I know it is true a lot of times. But a lot of times, that's not true. The reason why people support you when you're down is because they feel comfortable when you're down. It doesn't rattle their confidence. It doesn't rattle their self-esteem. You don't make them look bad with your, say, faults or your failures. So it actually makes them feel a little bit good inside. So again, we talked about authentic support. This is not authentic support when somebody's supporting you there, but in the back of their mind, they're a little bit happy that you didn't do well. Like we're looking at the parent, for example, that the child doesn't make it into this college that they would love to go to, but that college is all the way across the country. And so they don't verbalize it. They don't have the ability to verbalize it, to say, I love you, you're my child, it would kill me for you to move across the country, but I know for the right things, and if you want to go to this college across the country, I'm 100% supportive of you. Some people don't have the ability to do that. So they make it easy for their child to come back home. And so people read this as love. And I'm not saying that they don't love their kid, but they don't necessarily have the ability to love that kid the way they should be based upon their character flaws. So again, it's a very interesting concept that sometimes the people who are supporting us are not supporting us for the right reasons. And again, I've noticed too, and I'm sure a lot of other people that are listening to me right now have noticed the same thing, is that a lot of times when you do well, the people closest to you are not the happiest for you. And so that becomes a very difficult thing to deal with. So let's take a closer look as well at some other things. Now, if you want to see some real cheerleading in action, take a look at how the average fan who supports their favorite, sports team or musician, see what happens there. See how they support a political figure, right? They buy the shirts, they buy the jerseys, they buy the jackets, they buy the tickets, which are, by the way, overpriced. I live about 20 minutes from Allegiant Stadium where the Raiders play. It's the most expensive ticket in the NFL, and they're definitely not the most successful, so figure out that one. But people are going to go to those games anyway. They're going to support that team. They stand by their team no matter what. They always have a very charitable interpretation of what's going on. In other words, if they lose, it's like, well, we'll get them next time. If we're dealing with a political figure that gets arrested or looks like they should be going to jail, they make 50 excuses for them. And that's fine. Except I want to know, do we do that for our partners? Do we do that for our parents? I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I see this all the time. Like, people say, well, I'm never going to forgive. I don't want to forgive. I shouldn't have to forgive my parents. I'm like, well, you don't have to. No one's going to make you do that. Certainly not me. But it's really interesting how we forgive political figures. We forgive athletes. We forgive, I mean, it doesn't matter. You can get a good boxer, but if he's a rapist, it's like it's okay because he knows how to knock people out and he's exciting on TV. So we tend to forgive all of these people that mean absolutely nothing to us, or we put them on a pedestal and make them mean something to us when they really make no difference in our life whatsoever. From what I see, and again, I live in Las Vegas, I think more people in Las Vegas would cheer if the Raiders won the Super Bowl than if their own child graduated college. That's what I notice. I think more people talk more highly about these superstars, supposedly, than they do their own partners and their own kids. I noticed that too. It's funny, I'm recording this tonight on a night where there's, I think, a big party and a big parade down by the Strip for the Vegas Golden Knights. They won the Stanley Cup. And that's great. Everybody should go and have a good time, and that's awesome. But everybody's acting like it's their victory. And it's like, well, there are some probably, I don't know, some well-paid athletes on that team that, great for them. They did a good job. They probably wanted to do something like that since they were little kids. They probably dreamed of it. But if you're sitting in the audience and you're acting like this is the greatest thing that ever happened, and yet you probably don't cheer on that you have somebody in your family who's a lawyer or a doctor, or you have somebody, maybe your child just played a part in a school play. Are you cheering just as hard for that? Like, why are we not cheerleaders for the people who matter in our lives? And yet we go cheering for these people that we don't even know. We go cheerleading for these millionaires that don't make any difference in our lives whatsoever. You know, I thought about this when I was a lot younger, when I was competing in bodybuilding shows. Now, my family was supportive. I mean, I'm not going to say that they weren't. They were. But I always got the impression that it probably would be much more exciting for them to watch the New York Giants in football. If they could see the New York Giants win the Super Bowl, that would be much more meaningful for them than it would be if I won a bodybuilding show. Now, you could say, well, that's $1 billion company. It's a sports team, of course. Well, no, not of course. I'm in the family. Like, again, it doesn't make sense how we do this. Again, going back to the beginning of the show, being a cheerleader for the people around you is extremely important to hold those relationships together. But yet we exude our best cheerleading responses for things that have no bearing on our lives whatsoever. So that's a big part of what I wanted to get out today for this show. The other part is that you need to be able to give an enthusiastic, positive response to other people as well. And again, how do you do that? Again, because it's super important. Well, again, one of the ways you do that is by trying to manage your own emotions and feelings, by trying to handle your childhood traumas when you were younger, to get yourself away from this thought that if people around you do well, that it's somehow an affront to you or some negative to you in some way. So if we can get rid of all those character flaws, or as much as we can, if we can end up managing our traumas as much as possible, then we're going to be able to hopefully even choose a partner who's receptive to us, because that's what we're going to need as we grow. If we choose partners that mimic our childhood, we're going to have a lot of problems in relationships because our partners are not going to be able to grow with us. They're not going to be able to be cheerleaders for us. And on the other part, you have to work on your traumas because you want to be able to give these positive responses to people. And you want it to be 100% authentic. You don't want to think to yourself, well, I have to say something nice here, but really there's parts of me that I don't want to be nice. I read an article not so long ago about this woman, and I was very glad she wrote it. She was very honest about it. And it was her and a couple of friends, and they were at that age where they all wanted to be moms, and so they wanted to get pregnant. And this lady was having incredible difficulty. She was going to a fertility doctor. She was taking the drugs and whatever else you have to do above and beyond the normal. And what happened is that one by one, her friends were getting pregnant. And why she was writing this article is because she knew inside, as a good friend, that she's supposed to be caring and supportive and happy, enthusiastic, joyous for her friends, right? Because there's good news, they're pregnant, right? But she didn't really have that. She had anger, frustration, jealousy, envy, annoyance. She thought something was wrong with her, low self-esteem. She felt like a victim. Why is this happening to her? Why can everybody else get pregnant that's around her but not her? And so thus the show today. It's extremely important. We do know that it's important to be a cheerleader for the people around us. We know this. And we know it's important to be able to choose a partner that can accept that from us as well. However, in practice, do we do it? I'm going to say not as much as we should. I mean, I know that there's some people out there that really have a handle on this, and good for you. And that's great. Maybe you could teach some other people. But so for the show today is for people that do have this difficulty, and for these people out there that we're really trying to figure out why that there's people around them that can't really handle their good news, and they seem to be around them and only want to love and care for them when they do poorly. So let's have a conclusion here. So my conclusion is that you want to be able to be the best possible cheerleader for your partner that you can. That's number one. Number two, if you want to have a good life, you want to be able to choose a partner who can be a cheerleader for you. Again, extremely important. And how do you do this? Well, you have to work on your underlying character flaws. You have to go back in and dig deep about your childhood traumas, and you have to ask yourself why. Why do you might have an issue if somebody does well? Can you not be completely happy for them? You have to really plumb the depths of your soul to start to figure that out. Almost always, it comes from your family of origin, and that needs to be, we need to take a look at that. So again, for all the people in Las Vegas tonight that are taking their time out to go crazy and have this parade, and hopefully it's not like in other cities where they're trashing things and they're turning over cars and they're so incredibly excited about some millionaire who they don't know doing well, who they'll never meet. Go and do that. But please, go home. And why don't you tell your partner how important they are to you, as much as some hockey player who's a good goalie seems to be to you. Or go tell your kids how well they're doing. Be excited for them when they score a goal. Be more excited for when your kid scores a goal than if some guy on the Vegas Knights scores a goal. I want to see more of that. Again, so hopefully this was helpful to anybody out there. My name is Joe Peroni. This is the Rise Above Project. Please subscribe and tell a friend. Thank you.